Talk a little politics with our party scoopers. We have Craig Robinson. We have Jeff Link. We try to find out what in the world's happening in the state of Iowa politically. And I believe a lot of people focusing on what's happening in just a couple of days, Jackie.
Well, we need to catch up what happened last night. So they had a Q&A with whoever wanted to show up from the GOP.
Or speed dating session.
Well, how about an uncomfortable front row
That was awesome.
moments?
I think these candidates, they absolutely need to be forced to sit and listen to each other at every forum. I thought it was the best invention yet.
We might get a bunch of people dropping out if that were the case.
Because they all think what we think, like, oh, do I really have to sit and listen to all this?
Right.
Well, yeah, I did.
Well, I think they should do that because no one really made any statements that wasn't what the other one before them said.
No, and that's the nice thing about it. But, you know, it's like today I want to know what Lindsey Graham kept whispering to Carly Fiorina.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting.
So can we kind of recap what happened last night? It was just pretty much, hey, we're making our last plea to possibly get in prime time on Thursday.
Yeah, I think this forum last night that was held in New Hampshire but had media organizations from 3 early states involved was really well placed in terms of timing. And it didn't really allow the candidates the latitude to kind of, you know, create issues, bring up issues right before a debate, which I think would have happened had they kind of not had these campaigns handcuffed so much. But what it did do is really kind of give you some clues to maybe what you're going to see in this debate and on Thursday night. And look, I thought Governor Chris Christie did a really good job. I mean, he's a very talented politician, and that shined through last night on that debates or on that forum. And I think we'll see a pretty good debate out of him.
Yeah, no, if he makes it, because he's one of the 3 people they say are there for 2 spots, and he's one of the 3 people that are up for that.
Yeah, I really think that, surprisingly, John Kasich's going to make the debate stage. And I think Christie will make it, and Rick Perry will be that guy.
According to Political, that's exactly what they're saying this morning. Rick Perry is out, Chris Christie, Ohio Governor, John Kasich.
And I think we'll know at 4 o'clock today who's where.
How are we going to know that when Fox isn't even revealing what polls they're using to put these people on the stage?
Well, I think today they'll go on their network and say,
I just pulled a poll out.
I wish they would. Just say, hey, these are the people we want. These are the people we don't want.
That's essentially what they're doing.
That's just, and so just do that.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about it. Yeah.
Right, they are. And it was. I thought a couple things about last night. First of all, you had, 17? Because this group in New Hampshire wanted to make sure that everyone who didn't have a chance to get into the Fox debate on Thursday night got a chance to participate in this one. But there was one big exception. The Donald wasn't there. And it's almost not a real forum or a real debate at this point in this election without Donald Trump. And so he'll be the star of the show on Thursday night.
They've already said his podium is going to be right in the middle.
Well, of course.
So
where else would Donald put it? And
where would he put it?
It's amazing how things have changed so quickly in this race. I mean, just 3 or 4 weeks ago, we were saying, well, Trump's around, but he's probably shot himself in the foot on these POW comments and all these other things, and he's just sort of brushed all that aside and marching forward, and he has a bigger lead now than he's ever had.
Did I hear 26% approval rating? Right.
Well, 26% of the vote. I thought the most interesting poll number I saw from yesterday is that a month ago, 53% of Republicans said they would never consider voting for Donald Trump. That has dropped down to 33%.
He's Teflon Don.
It's amazing. It's really amazing.
He's just shaking the wheel of one that's kind of boring right now.
Right. No, I agree. He's interesting. And when you compare Donald Trump and everything that might come out of his mouth to Jeb Bush, I mean, one is interesting that you kind of will watch him do whatever they're doing. If Donald Trump's going to go do an interview, you're kind of keyed into it because you don't know what's going to happen. Jeb Bush is so predictable. They're polar opposites in this race. I thought it was fascinating. I went through, someone released the Donald Trump movie from the 80s. You can watch it online now. It's 90 minutes long. I watched the whole thing. But I was fascinated. It's really dated.
Is it?
But it's fascinating because the thing is the Donald Trump we see in this campaign is the same exact guy.
Right.
That we've seen through the 80s and 90s, basically, myself growing up. And he's always been like, this is the best news desk that money can buy. It doesn't, I mean, he will sell it. And that's what he's doing in this presidential campaign. And I think people are frustrated because typically the media doesn't, let you get away with stuff like that. But Donald's been getting away with this for 30 years, and I don't think it's going to change. He just keeps selling,
Right.
ABC,
Well,
always be closing.
the one thing that's interesting about that, and I think you've hit on a good point here. So people don't really care about the content of what he's saying, and in fact, the other poll number that came out was that people don't really even care about electability right now. They don't care if he's electable in the fall of next year. What they really want is somebody that'll actually say what they think. And they're not getting it from the rest of that field. And he has been saying the same crazy things for 30 years, but it's really what he believes.
And it's the same crazy stuff my dad tells me when we sit around the fire pit at home.
My dad would have
It's
too.
the same crazy stuff that a lot of people
That a
do.
lot of people think.
Okay,
right.
so let's look at this.
You're
On
right, though. You're
Thursday,
absolutely
they're saying
right.
it's going to be some of the highest viewed,
It'll be the most watched
most watched
primary
Republican
debate.
primary ever. Okay, for entertainment purposes, or are we actually going to learn something about the few that are able to make it into prime time?
That's going to be interesting. I think this is an opportunity for all the candidates. And so I think you better, when you have the mic, you better make the most of it. And I don't think that means you have to be outlandish, but I think that you have to take your opportunities when they come. It's like a batting cage. You better be swinging when the ball's coming your way, and you better make contact. And so, I think people have an opportunity here to step out and say, look, I can stand shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump and get my views across and be interesting. That's why I think Chris Christie is a guy to watch. That's why I think John Kasich is someone to watch, because they're interesting. And guys like Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio, they are fading into the background, where they, by all other measures, they're front runners in this race. But I think that they're just not as interesting. They're overly cautious. And, I think they need to step up in this debate. And if they don't, the train could just pass them by.
Well, hopefully Kasich and Christie will be able to make it in, so it can make it kind of interesting. Someone who's not also doing very well, Santorum, his campaign manager, his Iowa State coordinator, and his digital strategist have all left him. The man who won the caucus back in 2012 here in Iowa might not even make it to Iowa this year. Do you know what's going on there?
I'll say this, though, about Rick Santorum. I know him very well. And the one person who doesn't get enough credit for his victory is Santorum himself. I mean, he's like a one-person campaign, and I think that he has made mistakes, and he hasn't realized that when you run for a second time, you have to be more formidable. You have to have you have to build up a better campaign. He didn't do that. And so I think, that's hurting him. But I think that the other thing is this is a guy who is really good at campaigning, really good at doing what he needs to do in Iowa, and he doesn't need a lot of the trappings of a big campaign to be
So do
successful.
Democrats just sit and watch this whole slugfest with glee, or is there a certain concern that, we're not in the headlines and that's bad?
No, I think there's some of that, but one thing on Santorum, if we can go back just a second.
Sure.
This revolving door between the candidate's campaign and these super PACs is really problematic. I mean, the idea is that super PACs are supposed to be independent and not coordinating with campaigns, and it's just a farce and a sham, and it's ridiculous, and we really do need to figure out some way to change the rules to eliminate this. It's just legal fiction that there's a difference between the super PACs and the campaigns, and it's a problem.
I have a hard time figuring out the difference sometimes in a press release between a super PAC and an actual campaign. That's a problem.
Yeah, and so the one thing, so last weekend, the Koch brothers held a big meeting in California, and they invited 450 donors, and a bunch of the candidates went out to see them. What they said doesn't really matter. The two comments about it I thought were great. One, Donald Trump, in his continuing moment of authenticity, said, well, I wouldn't go out there on bended knee and beg those rich guys for money. Well, of course, he is one of the rich guys. So
He did that on a Twitter feed,
yeah. He doesn't have to. And then the second one, which was the opposite of being authentic. It is the worst case of political amnesia I have ever seen, and that's saying something. But Newt Gingrich says, I can't believe those guys went out there. These super PACs are bad. I can't believe they were out there begging for money from these Koch brothers. Well, Newt Gingrich is the guy who only survived 4 years ago because Sheldon Adelson gave him $10 million to his super PAC. That's the only reason he stayed in the race, and he's bemoaning the fact
But he
that
still has so much campaign debt. He's wishing that money could have just went to the campaign so he wouldn't have all this debt to deal with.
But the fact of the matter is, you have to spend $1 billion or more to become president, right? I mean, that seems to be the bottom line.
that's what it costs in 2012, and every year
costs more than that,
it
yeah.
goes more.
crazy.
Yeah.
And until that gets fixed, nothing gets fixed.
Well, honestly, I don't think you're going to fix the total amount of money that goes into the system, right? It's like water. It figures out a way to get into the system. But what you can do is figure out a way to make it as transparent as possible so that everybody knows exactly where the money's coming from, who it's going to, and how they're spending it. And we don't have that right now.
Everybody laughed at that. I don't remember who it was that said the candidates should have, like NASCAR guys do.
Yeah. Sponsors. Yeah, sponsors
who's
up and down
sponsoring
there.
it?
Trump,
So-
I don't think it's such a...
Trump.
So
we're
Facebook
gonna have
is
a lot.
partnering with Fox. So if you want to follow on social media, you don't actually want to watch, you can see what's going on. They're supposedly going to answer a question from Facebook every 15 minutes. So hopefully it's not just going to be run by Fox on Thursday. You're actually going to have input from actual.
All right, post-debate
People as
analysis
well.
next time we
That's not
visit,
good.
so that'll be interesting. Thank you, gentlemen. It is 7:30.